public service. So the first question will be, you've touted yourself as a top technocrat and a civil servant. How easy was it to transit into mainstream politics?
It wasn't very easy. It wasn't very easy to transition. The civil service, when you're a public servant, you operate within very restricted structures. Everything is in certain order. You sign performance contracts, you have a work plan, everything is set. Now I tried to get into the campaign with a work plan. You know how you say, on this day I'll go here, I'll talk to this number of people, then I'll move on here. It didn't quite work, and you learn that in politics things are amorphous and you have to adjust to the circumstances. And then the things that you expect you're going to come and tell people so that they elect you is not really necessarily what they want to hear from you. You know, you come with a development agenda of certain things, they tell you that's not our priority is this. So the transitioning to mostly listening, speaking in public, informally. I still am used to speeches that are written. I'm very guarded in what I say. I think 10 times before I say something, and I like it written so that I don't actually go off the script most of the time. But in politics, sometimes you have to respond off the cuff and be able to say something, and not necessarily what you're thinking, you know, but what you know that the people want to hear. So that becomes a bit difficult sometimes in the transitioning, but you learn, and you learn the limits of how to deliver a message that is popular and a message that is not very popular. You know, sometimes you may need to say there's no money. You can't promise everything every day and then not perform. So transitioning to know how to deliver that message of just wake up and say, I don't have a budget, so that thing we can't do. You try and tell them in a way that is a little bit more palatable. Yes, I hear you. This is really a priority for you. This year we have planned this. We will see in the next 2-3 years how we can factor your needs so that you manage also expectations. So the transition, I can say, was not very easy. The second thing in the transition in politics is just understanding the political environment. You know, who should you talk to? You will find that there are very serious influencers on the ground. And yes, you may have a very good message, and you can go to the people. But if you don't engage that cluster of the influencers, or to make sure that they have your buy-in, there can be a difficulty in politics. So the transition wasn't that easy, but we managed.
Good. Now, you're serving as a second-term governor, and being a pioneer female governor. What would you say was your biggest decision for the time you've served as the governor of Kirinyaga?
I think one of my biggest decisions was whether to run again.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I really debated whether I wanted to run again. For the simple reason, I had gone through a very turbulent time in the first time with the issues of impeachment and all. And I kept asking myself, do I really want to do this again? But because I had a plan, the people of Kirinyaga wanted that plan implemented. We have a blueprint for 15 years. We've done 5 years, now 6. We have another 9 years to go. I knew that if I left it halfway, it will jeopardize the implementation of that plan. And so I made a difficult decision of saying, let me give it another shot and work hard to win so that we can be able to finish that which we promised the Kirinyaga people. And I don't regret the decision at all. But at the time, it was not a very easy decision. The other decision in terms of policies and priorities, as I've said, I made a decision to build the level 5 hospital because our hospital was of very many years ago. It was dilapidated and very old, and we don't have that much resources. Kirinyaga was receiving then 4.2 billion, and we had less than about 800 for development, 800 million. We're not like other counties that receive 10, 15, 12 billion shillings. This year now we are receiving about 5.2, and we have about 1.2 for development, 4 billion being recurrent. So you can see it's very little window to do much. But now to split that, the decision on how to split the money to make sure that your priorities are being implemented, and managing expectations for both the public, the county assembly, making sure that everyone is on one side. It's not easy, but you just put our efforts together, said we are going to build this hospital, and we'll build 2 other level 4s, and we'll equip them, and we'll do the 16 markets, and then now work on where do you get the resources to do that. So we made sure that we supplemented fundraise from development partners, added support from National for other projects, and made sure that our key projects were financed from our budget.
Governor, you've mentioned a very important point. I think in your first time you mentioned there was an attempt to send you home literally to the county assembly. You have introduced a very interesting bill called the County Assembly Service Act. Do you think this is a magic broom to sort out the relationship between MCAs and the executive office?
I don't think it's a magic panacea for that problem, but I think it will help. But usually the issues when it comes to conflict between county assemblies and the governors is not necessarily just finances. Sometimes it's also relational. And as I said earlier, sometimes they're motivated by other things other than just that debate. So if you look across the country, there could be various reasons that may cause there to be a conflict. What is important is for someone to understand how to engage the county assemblies, and also work very hard to ensure you have progressive members of the county assembly elected. In my first term, I did not make any effort at all to participate in the election of the county assemblies, and maybe that's why I got some problems with them in the middle of my term. But this time round, I was actively participating in ensuring that I am campaigning for candidates that I know will work for the county, come from my party, are committed, and we have the same vision. I was very aggressive about that campaign, and that helps build also the relationship, so that now it's easier if there are disputes to be able to resolve them. So the relationship, yes, on the financial autonomy of the county assembly, that is a good thing. It will resolve any unnecessary constraints between the executive and the assembly, because the money is predetermined and they get their money straight, and there is no back and forth between us and them. And then beyond that, there can be other potential conflict areas, and those are usually dealt with by how you relate with them and how you engage and how often. Yeah.
Now, Governor, you've served in different capacities, of course. Everyone remembers you when you are Treasury, and groundbreaking initiatives, Huduma number, Huduma Center, so to say, credited to you. How was it working under President, of course, Kibaki, and planning and implementing long-term projects at that time?
You may not know, but when I was advisor in the office of President Kibaki, is when we introduced performance contracting. In fact, I was seconded from the World Bank to be an advisor in President Kibaki's government in the office of the President under the Public Service Reform Department, to actually bring reforms to the public service. So one of the reforms that we brought in is performance contracting. Maybe that is why I take it as seriously as it is now. It was quite interesting to work under President Kibaki. He was very focused, spoke very little. I worked with the PS reforms, and we were in OP, and the head of public service then was Muthaura. And he delegated quite a bit, but he was very clear about his vision, very much like our current president, very, very focused, razor focused on where it is he wants the country to go. And he did not allow himself to be distracted at all. So, in fact, that is one similarity I find between our current president, President William Ruto and President Kibaki, there is a focus on where they want the country to go, and they're focused on changing the conversation to the economy and revamping the economy and discussing on international matters, things that affect the country. The only difference is that our president is engaging more with the public, more with the people. President Kibaki was a bit more laid back in his engagement. Very minimal interaction with the public, and very minimal public rallies. But their focus, and there is a focus on where they were taking the country, is very similar.
Now, you've mentioned that Kirinyaga, your annual budget actually this year, you've mentioned that it's 5.2 billion versus the huge wish list you would want to implement as a government. How do you bridge this gap?
I don't quite say bridge the gap. What we do is we set priorities.
Okay.
And we say, what is it that must be done? What is it that has the greatest impact to the people? It's very simple to prioritize in a county like mine. We are blessed. We're a rural county, but we are mostly focusing on agriculture, and we are blessed with good soils, good weather. Most of our people accept farming. We are moving towards urbanization a little bit. So, in fact, if you look at our assessments, in the last 5 years, we've been improving. I think latest we were ranked amongst the wealthiest counties, so to speak. If you look at just what we do, it's very easy to prioritize what it is my priority should be. If you look at production of rice, right now in the Mwai irrigation scheme, we have about 25,000 acres under irrigation. We are increasing that with another 15,000 acres to bring it to about 40, producing about 110,000 metric tons of rice, and with that the income that goes then to the rice farmers is about 8.2 billion shillings. So you can see there's money that's circulating in Kirinyaga. If you go to coffee, we are producing about 38,000 metric tons. We are number 2 in the country. Kiambu produces about 42,000 metric tons, but the size of Kiambu is like almost 4 times the size of Kirinyaga. Kirinyaga is fairly small. We are 1480 square kilometers. Kiambu is probably 5 times that. If you look at our population, about 600,000 people, Kiambu is at 2.2 million. So when I show you a gap of coffee production of only 4,000 metric tons, that tells you that our productivity is very high. Income for farmers from coffee in the past year was about 17 billion shillings. So if you look at those numbers, you will see why I answer the question. You're not seeing people in the streets. We don't have that many idle people in Kirinyaga because people are farming. When you go to tomato production, we've been number 1 for the last couple of years, producing the highest in terms of tonnage. We were at 60,000 metric tons. I'm told now we have gone to about 72,000 metric tons. And probably didn't know that we are the number 1 producers of tomatoes. The tomatoes you eat in Nairobi come from Kirinyaga County. So then, to answer your question, what is my priority? My priority then would have to be agriculture. One of the priorities would have to be agriculture and focusing on these value chains: rice, coffee, tomatoes, avocados, macadamia, tea, making sure that farmers are getting the best out of their inputs and increasing their income. So our interventions have been around agriculture. So that takes a good portion of my budget. The second one is, of course, you cannot be able to produce agriculture if you don't have good health. And so health is also a major issue. We've had a lot of people asking for support to pay medical bills, and sometimes they will make some money, but that money will be wiped out completely by just one person in the family becoming sick. And that's why the focus then is on healthcare. That's why we've upgraded our level 4 to level 5. That, if you've been to Kirinyaga Hospital, you will see it's exactly the same standard of any private sector high hospital in Nairobi, Aga Khan, exactly the same standards. And we are doing the same for Kirinyaga and Kimbimbi, and Sagana as well, and Baricho, making sure that every sub-county has a level 4 that provides the adequate service with regard to healthcare. We also put our resources, more than 35% of my budget, I think it's going to close to 40, goes to health. And then a good portion of about 20 or so goes to agriculture. So even the priority in terms of the resources that we have is related. And then now we look at now the gaps. How is it that we can make people more comfortable? How do we partner with the national governments in the priorities? One example, low-cost housing initiated by His Excellency the President. I am one of those first, I was amongst the first counties to launch the low-cost housing here in Kirinyaga. I think I was even second county where the groundbreaking was done. Kirinyaga is already almost at the third or fourth level of our low-cost housing. Why did I run with it? Because you see, we are small-scale farmers. Most families will have 2 or 3 children. Then those children will eventually get 2 or 3 children. So if you are a low-cost a small-scale farmer with a 5-acre land with 3 acres producing coffee, and then you subdivide that 5 acres with your 4 children, everyone gets 1 acre. Then those children get more children, and then again you subdivide. We will lose our agricultural land. So we're encouraging our young people to move to the towns, Kirinyaga, for those who live near Kirinyaga, Kirinyaga, so that we consolidate and we leave the land consolidated for farming. If you go to Mwai, if you drove through Mwai, you will see there are no houses because you cannot build a house in a rice paddy. You grow rice in a sort of irrigation environment. So they will really need the low-cost housing for Mwai East and Mwai West. And we hope that in partnering with the national government in these initiatives, we'll be able to preserve our land for agricultural production because that's a priority of our people. Yeah.
Governor, I want to congratulate you, one, for being the first female governor to chair the Council of Governors. Then the question will be, how does it feel in a male-dominated council? Of course, with a country that is still struggling patriarchy, how does it feel on a day-to-day to run one of the biggest entities in the country?
I wouldn't say I think about it in that way. I think once you become a governor, you see yourself as one amongst equals. And luckily for us at the council, the issue of gender really doesn't apply. They didn't elect me because I was a woman. They elected me because I was competent. And I think that is the same thing even when you're a governor. Yes, you're a woman candidate, but people will not just elect you because you're a woman. They will elect you if you're competent to be a governor. And the standards have been set high. You can see not just amongst women governors, but across the country, even amongst male governors. So every county will be looking and comparing with other counties and saying, we have seen this happening in this county. We have seen this development happening in this county. Is this person able? Before they even start saying whether you're a woman or a man. So I would say it's been a challenging and good experience. Balancing the act, I think the biggest challenge for us in the council is that it has got both sides of the political divide. Almost 50-50, but now Kenya Kwanza is a bit with a little bit more, but generally our decisions are by consensus. So trying to keep the focus on devolution matters, because the council's mandate is to push for devolution matters, and the balance between that and ensuring that we all of us keep focus and as much as possible dissipate any tensions that may come because of political affiliation has been an interesting task. Amazing. Yeah, let me say that.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Then of course, as the chair, you are the custodian, the keeper, the protector of the whole devolution outfit. Now, last week, if I remember well, the president said that currently the national government does not owe counties money. In that respect, do you think this government, especially President William Ruto, is a true champion of devolution?
I think so. I believe that the president is committed to devolution. He has demonstrated it. It was the first time ever that we had a sitting with as a current president for 2 days, just discussing that in itself tells you about a commitment of an individual. And that was one. He listened to us. Of course, there was quite a number of things that were going with the ministers about either functions or rules or things that we wanted to implement. And you'll be amazed that if there is one person who understood and supported the governors, was the president, you know. And even on the issues of resource, we understand the constraints that the country is in right now. But he has tried very hard. For the first time in the history of devolution, we got all our monies for the last financial year by the end of June. It had never happened. I was Minister of Devolution. It didn't happen when I was Minister. And I was first-time governor for 5 years. It never happened. The second thing is in July, we were so surprised when we all got our money for July. And it was such a blessing and a pleasant surprise. We had wired our heads that we will get the money in September, because that's what usually used to happen. So when the thing came and we got the message that all your money is there for September, we had already prepared our staff. Your salaries will be delayed, because that has always been the issue. Please don't complain. The money will come late. You know, we are starting the financial year. But we're able to pay our salaries on time. Our doctors were paid on time. We're able to buy medicines. The agricultural interventions that farmers need to be given support in to start preparing even for these rains that are coming. We were on time, and we're progressing well. In August, the money has been delayed a little bit because some counties got and others didn't get. We have been told mostly it's because they have huge balances that maybe some counties were holding, but we have challenges. We've had challenges with control of budget, clearing some of the payments from counties, which we are trying to address so that counties are able to get their monthly on. Just today, we've gotten a second tranche for the August, so the money is reducing. Yeah. Maybe a cut.
Yeah, sure.
My nose is running.
Somebody switch off AC.
AC, yeah.
That's affecting.
Yeah, I have this AC. Yeah. Yeah.